I'm very happy today that I'm with you on this topic of how we can use blockchain for preventing frauds in the first place, because we know prevention is better than cure, right? So let's not allow the frauds to happen in the first place. If they don't happen, obviously our lives will be much simpler and smoother, right? So many of you have heard of this technology jargon. I want to ask you about if you have heard of something called distributed ledgers. Can you raise your hands? How many of you have heard the word distributed ledger? Right? Great. How many of you have heard of this word called blockchain? Much bigger participation. Nice. Thank you. How many of you heard of this thing called Bitcoin? Much, much bigger. And how many of you have heard of these cryptocurrencies? Everybody. Because obviously we are more focusing on how to invest in these cryptocurrencies and then mint money, as if money is coming very easily, and become rich overnight, right? I speak from multiple dimensions. I speak from management perspective. I speak from academics. I speak from technology. And I also speak from legal dimensions. I'm happy. We have a diversified audience also today. We have legal professionals. We have fraud professionals. We have auditors and governmental professionals, of course. This is a very relevant technology. I'm happy that Radhakrishna Rao sir has included this topic into this program. Yes, sir, please.
It's not fraud question, they are anti-fraud.
Very nice of you. Yes, indeed. Yes, I'm sorry about that. So, yes. So, this technology, it keeps changing. So, we have to embrace the technology. So, we have a set of technologies that have come in the recent past, starting from 2000 onwards, which are so promising that the way we do business, the way we do things will keep changing. They change so drastically, significant changes, significantly alter the way you do work. So we have this industrial revolution. The development of banking and the financial services are closely related to industrial revolutions, right? So we are in the fourth generation of industrial revolution where our devices talk to each other. It's not we really doing the talk, but our devices start talking. So they start communicating with each other. So blockchain is one such technology which comes in the fourth industrial revolution. You have, of course, much bigger technologies like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, etc. But for a financial professional, for a banking professional, this is more relevant for us. Now, if you see the word called blockchain, we are much aware, but it's actually what is called a distributed ledger. It's a distributed ledger technology, right? And we see how frauds can be prevented in the first place if you start using this technology. Believe me or not, people will start using the technology sooner or later. It's a matter of time. So if we are ahead of things, if we are starting to learn these kind of things, we will definitely be ahead in the game. Otherwise, we become outdated. Now, accounting system is not at all outdated. It's age-old kind of system, but so many things like triple accounting system also started coming in, right? We are used to double way of doing things, but now triple way of doing things are also coming in. So, which means to say that if we are lazy, we cannot survive for long. So, this technology called blockchain, it's same as distributed ledger technology, where information, we call it data, is put in a block. And these blocks are distributed, right? Now, blockchain is basically a technological infrastructure. There's nothing like a program, one single program. It's a system altogether. It's an infrastructure, right? And this takes care of what is called decentralized. It's a decentralized distributed ledger, which means to say that there is no central computer, central authority, central system which takes control. The system as a whole, the whole of network as a whole, communicates with each other and ensures that trust is brought into the place. The biggest threat we have as far as frauds is about lack of trust. So here, using blockchain technology, we are forcing the system to enforce the trust. Our systems enforce the trust. And we believe systems are much more error-proof rather than error-prone, right? So the systems will enforce the kind of trust. There is no central authority. Data is freely, openly available with all the people. The system is such a way designed that you will be able to verify the information, but you cannot tamper the information. This is because the system is immutable. It's an immutable ledger, which means to say once information is written to the ledger, it cannot be removed, it cannot be altered, it cannot be changed. You cannot go back. And you can do a tracing of this whole information. So every time some records are being added, every time some data is being added, there's a whole chain that gets created. I'll show with an example also later, but let to to make you brief over this. And the beauty of the system is that it's available for access instantly, simultaneously, and validation of information is very instant, because validation of information, the genuineness of information should not be lost in time. And it's a record keeping system. Basically, all database systems are like record keeping systems, right? So if you see, the concept of this blockchain is like the mother, is the mother technology based on which cryptocurrencies have come. We are more aware of cryptocurrencies than awareness of blockchain. Cryptocurrency is an adaptation, it's an implementation of blockchain technologies, right? And Bitcoin is one of the many examples of cryptocurrencies. So you can understand it's like a pyramid kind of structure. So this person, Satoshi Nakamoto, so what he did is he wrote a research paper. He was doing some research. His research is a landmark research because he is questioning the very basics of what is called third-party people. In the financial system, in the banking system, if you take an example, bank is an intermediary. Bank is a person between the buyer and seller, for example. If I want to remit funds from one person to another person, the bank is an intermediary because neither the buyer nor the seller trust each other. So they want a third person to come in between and say, yes, I'm taking the role of a mediation between the two, and then I'm helping you out in the process. So all our intermediary systems, you are in multiple professions. So I mean, you are in multiple roles. You can observe whoever are the intermediaries in that, right? And what happens is that these intermediaries are charging a high amount of fee over a period of time, right? These banks, they are very rich. These financial institutions or anyone who provides services in the financial industry are obviously very rich because every transaction they get a commission, fee, penalty, whatever it is, the name you name. So intermediaries are becoming expensive in the whole of process. If I want to transfer 1 rupee from my account to another account, if there is a charge involved in that, a minimum charge is involved in that, then I think twice. I don't want to transfer 1 rupee. Instead, I'll wait for some period of time and then send a larger amount of money. So that is what I would do. So he created this white paper on this subject called blockchain. So his blockchain implementation is a peer-to-peer networking. Peer-to-peer network is a system where computers connect with each other. They share resources. They share the work activity, right? My MPhil degree is on peer-to-peer researching. So we used peer-to-peer networks to create a system where resources are being shared. Ideal resources of a system are shared. What is the ideal resource of a system? Your CPU, for example, is an ideal resource. So we want to use this ideal resource for productive uses. So he used this peer-to-peer system, but it's on an electronic cash management system. And he says that we don't trust each other as an individual, as a people. So let the system enforce the trust. This is a drastic change. So our system, my computer, will trust your computer rather than me doing the thing, right? So he's created a system that there is no need of a third party in the whole process. Now this is a very big bad news. There is no need of a third party because when systems communicate with each other, if the buyer and seller are doing the negotiation and doing the transfers and they're putting the onus of verification on the whole system, why do we need an intermediary? So this is a very big threat to the banking industry, very big threat to the financial services industry as well as to the governments, right? Because government enjoys taxes, right? Every time a transaction, every time a service happens, right? So he wanted to create a system where people will be able to exchange money because his focus was about money. So electronic transfer of money without the need of a third party. That is his concept. That is what is the basics of blockchain, right? And he is enforcing this trust using a hash mechanism. Hash is a crypto technology, is a very basic technology. Hash is a digest of the information which is put in the block, right? So how does the system work? If you see, the blockchain block is a package, it's a packet, it's a block, wherein we put the data, right? So data, the beauty of this data is it need not be information, it need not be just numbers or something like that, it need not be just a fact. The beauty of the system is that it can be an asset, it can be a contract. It can be a contract, right? It can be money. It could be an agreement which can be enforceable because the system is taking care of the trust here. So when I say data, it can be of multiple ways, multiple methods. When we are implementing in the context of money exchange, we call it as cryptocurrency. When you are using blockchain in the case of transferring money from one wallet to another wallet, it is cryptocurrency. But the concept can be used in multiple ways. Wherever data is involved, you can use it. Now, data can be of many types. People are using blockchain systems for selling paintings online. People are using in back-end technology. Wherever data is there, they can start using the thing. Every time this data is put into this box, into this block, a hash is created. Hash is like a fingerprint. Hash is the digest of the information. It's a very small, simple summary, right? Now, I told you, when you're building a new system, the challenge here is it should be difficult to put the data. Not everyone should be able to put data. Only verified people, after thorough verification, should be able to put the information. But verification of this information should be very easy. If I want to find out whether it is tampered or not, yes or no kind of answer, I want very quick answer. So if you look at the hash, it will give you the answer. So if someone changed the data that is put in the box, as I'm telling you, data can be a transaction where money is moving. It can be a record, it can be a document, it could be a picture, it could be an image, it could be a music, whatever it is, right? So if the data is tampered, if data is changed, this is where the fraud concept comes in, right? People want to change the information so that they want to become advantageous taking up their mistakes in the system, right? So when someone changes the information, which someone changes or tampers the data, automatically the hash changes, right? So because this hash is generated by the system, the hash is generated by the system. So when the data is changed, obviously the hash changes. When the hash changes, people will doubt you, will verify, re-verify, will check whether you are really, the data is tampered or not. It's very easy to identify. So what we do is we create these kind of blocks. So many blocks will be there. The authority to make a block lies with certain set of people. Not everyone will be able to create a block. And usually, considering the large scale of information, the quantum of information also, what we do is we put in lots of transactions in a single block before we pass it on to the network, right? So the concept is something like this. I do a fund transfer from my account to your account. That is a transaction. The entry of this transaction is one record, which is put into a block. There will be several such transactions, and all of them are clubbed together and put into a block for efficiency reasons, right? So what happens is that a chain of blocks is created, right? Once the block, it's a container basically. Once the container is full, what should you do? You have to create another block. So you create another block. Who can create another block? In the case of cryptocurrencies, for example, we know this concept of miners, right? So these cryptocurrency miners, their job is to use their processing power to solve a crypto puzzle. Crypto means something confusing, something difficult to solve. So if you want to prove that you have the capability of maintaining the consistency in the system, you should prove yourself. You should solve a cryptic problem. Every time a problem is solved, the next problem will be much difficult to solve. That means to say you need to have more CPU power, you need to have more network power, etc., etc. Right? Individual one single computer cannot or will not be able to do that. Right? So what we do is the first block that is created is called the genesis block. Okay? It contains some data. The previous hash is a pointer to the previous block, but because this is the first block, the genesis block will not have any previous hash. The person who created the blockchain itself, the implementer, the first person who created the particular blockchain, he will be owning the genesis block, right? Subsequently, when block 2 is created, the block 2's data, some data is put into that, right? There will be a previous hash. The previous hash points to the genesis block here. So the block 2 points to the genesis block, right? And as I'm telling you, not everyone has the power to create blocks. So only certain people will be able to do that. So what we are doing is we are creating blocks and we are putting data into that. And every block is connected with the previous block. So a chain is created, right? So as the number of transactions increases, as the quantum of data increases, we might have to create much lengthier chain of blocks, right? Now, these chains are connected. It's an open distributed ledger. This is a ledger process. So what happens is that this blockchain content is available with everyone who is involved in this block, who is connected with this block. So the content of information is available with everyone, but they cannot open and see. Why? Because it is encrypted cryptographically, right? So information is there with me. I have a copy of the file. I have a copy of the blockchain data, but I cannot use it. I cannot open it and do anything with that. If I cannot open it because I don't have these keys, public key, private key encryption, right? So we don't have the keys. So you cannot open the data and see the contents of it. But you can validate the data. How can you validate the data? I give you a block, you send it to the hash number gets generated. If the hash is equal, then it's fine, it's correct. If hash is not correct, that means your data block, that particular block that is in your hand, is not correct. So verification is easy, creation is difficult. Creation of blocks is difficult, right? So this is how the subject got created. Now there are various ways of using blockchain. So it so happens that in this picture you can see a malicious person, he wants to put in a block. He created his block, he's a part of the network, he created a block. He wanted somehow to put the block into the system, right? The second person, if you see in the picture, the second person, right? Sorry. So what happens is that if he creates a new block, the previous block, he can point to the previous block, but the next block will not point to him, right? So in this case, if you see the second block was created by fraud, but the third block will not point to the second block, right? So obviously he cannot enter into the system in the first place, right? In this manner, when you're adding blocks to the chain, only those people who have authority, who have the power, will be able to do that. Now how much is the number? How much is the power? 50%, 51% of the resources. Whosoever owns 51% resources of the entire blockchain will have the power to do whatever he wants to in the network, right? So there are various kinds of systems. We are moving away from centralized systems to distributed systems, right? We are aware of this concept. For example, if you do a basic course on computer science, we speak about databases, right? Then we said databases have changed into RDBMS, right? Many of you have heard of RDBMS, SQL Server, etc., right? So later on, even if you see the computing technologies also, we are now into much connected internet-based connected systems, right? Any computer which is connected to the network can be a participant of it. So we are moving away from centralized systems to decentralized systems. That is a given thing. So if your institution says we cannot put this information on the cloud, over time they'll agree and then obviously do that. So they're transforming, they're changing, they're moving. We have to take this into granted. Now in a blockchain system, these are all interconnected systems, right? So some new anonymous users also can enter into a network. Because we are connected to a network, someone can have an access to our computer and join into the computer. They also can become a part of the blockchain. They also can have a copy of the information, right? But the problem with this approach is that they can have a copy, but by the time they open and decrypt and open it, it will take years together, some hundreds of years together. So if the bigger your blockchain system is, the more difficult it is to break into the system, right? So that kind of foolproof kind of mechanism was put into place. So those people who have high computing power, they have to do what is called proof of work. The proof of work is a demonstration that I can create a block. I can create a block, I can maintain a block and kind of things. So this proof of work is a way in which they solve a mathematical problem, and the end result is that they have the power to create a block. There is something called proof of stake. The management, for example, of an institution, they can have a proof of stake in the sense that they can own the currency, they can own the assets, they can own the whole of system, right? And they can manage the system, but ultimately creation is again a proof of work concept, right? So ideally, if you want to create a block, it takes around 10 minutes time to create a block, right? So the system is designed in such a way that it's very easy to verify, to validate, but it's very difficult to put in a new kind of systems. So we have this what is called a blockchain funnel. So the concept of blockchain, the philosophy of blockchain is with these three things. First one is trust. And here, when I say trust, it is not a password-oriented trust. It is a network-oriented trust. The network ensures that the trust is there in the system, right? The second one is the traceability. So if you ask me, where is the genesis block? You can trace all the transactions because it's a chain. And in the chain, you have the previous block always. So for example, if you have a chain of 200 blocks, so 200 block will point to 199. 199 will point to 199, so and so. You can go back to the first initial genesis block. So it's always easy to trace the information. The third one is it is tamper proof. It is tamper proof because the content is encrypted. So we use a lot of complex technologies, much better than better evolved technologies. I'm just speaking in a very open and simple way. This is how the whole system works. Assume that there's a transaction that is happening. Assume that we want to put information on a blockchain. So the transaction is put into a block. The block is sent to the network. The third part, the third picture. Now when the block is sent to the network, all the computers in the network will get a copy of the block. The computers will not know the information. They cannot open and verify the information. Verify in the sense they don't know the content of the information. But they want to verify the integrity of the information. With hashing, we can do that. So once the block is received, all the computers will talk to each other. This is peer-to-peer network, so that connectivity is always there with these computers. So all the computers will confirm, yes, this person created the block, I okay it, I'll add it to the blockchain. Right? So the genesis block is there, the first block is created. So everyone, all the computers in the network will have a copy of that information. Right? So if something is to be verified, if something is to be added, then at least 51% of the computers, 51% of the resources, they should agree, yes, this is the valid information. If they say, if at least one of them say no, the whole concept is lost. So I doubt the person who gave the information to me. So if some third party person comes into the picture, some hacker comes into the picture, he tries to add his content into the blockchain, the system will reject it. Because the system cannot accept it, because it hasn't come from a trusted party, the hashing is not verified. There's no consensus here. What is consensus? Mutual agreement. So here, who is doing the consensus? All the computers of the network are doing the consensus. Right? So all the computers should agree that this is a new block. Yes, I should be able to, this is a valid block. I should be able to add it to the system. And there is something mining concept being done because they're working hard to solve this cryptographic management problems, right? So a small token is given to them. That token is in the form of a currency, etc., etc. Right? So once it is okayed, once all the computers okay that yes, I can add it to the block, they'll mutually agree, a block number is given, it is added to the chain. So in this manner, a block chain gets created. Right? Then it is updated to the network that the block is being created, and then the transaction confirmation comes into picture. This subject of blockchain came in 2008. When this initial concept came in, it used to take hours together to confirm this. So when a block gets added to the network, it used to take a lot of time for us to get a confirmation. And we can't wait for such kind of transactions. Financial transactions should happen in seconds or a millisecond kind of thing. For example, you put a card in an ATM, there is a cash withdrawal happening. To authenticate and okay the cash withdrawal, the system should not take much time. We are already suffering, even without blockchain itself, we are already suffering. And now if you put in blockchain, this system takes a lot of time to really verify and then okay the transaction. Now because of much developer technologies, etc., it is now taking around 3 seconds. So the validation of a transaction takes 3 seconds to happen. It is still a much larger amount of time, and we have some methods to overcome this. Now, if you think about using this blockchain technology beyond the financial transaction space, beyond the normal data, look at this example, smart contracts. The AP government is already using this concept. How does they use? If we want a contract to be enforceable, we want some intermediary to verify, to agree that this was a genuine transaction. Right? So parties are there is a contract document, we go to a third party company, third party institution. For example, we go to the registration office with the documents, buyer seller goes to the registration office, the registration authority, he okays the transaction, and only then the contract is valid. Right? And he's paid a commission or a fee or whatever it is. Right? So when you use a blockchain system, there is no need of a third party. There is no need of a third party, which means to say that in the guise of making processes simplified, so many people will get eliminated, including some government departments. Right? Because there is no need of a third party. The system ensures that when the fund transfer happens from A to B, the contract automatically gets enforced. Right? So that kind of system is put into place. And there is no third party, there is no execution of contract happens only after the first transaction happens, where the money or amount or something gets transferred. So this is what they are going to do. Then we have a new generation of things coming in. This is called dApps, distributed apps. Now to give you a simple example of how things work, we know this tool called Google Play. Right? We heard of this Google Play, right? Where did we hear? Everyone who has an Android phone will have Google Play, right? So when I ask for an app to be installed, what does Google Play do? It will find the nearest server, Google server, wherever if there are mirrors, it finds the nearest mirror and then downloads a copy of it. What if that server is down? What if a web server is down? He cannot download that, he will get error, so many people will be off network, etc., etc. We have seen these systems, right? We have seen these kind of issues. So in order to avoid this kind of downtime, we distribute it. We put it into multiple areas, multiple computers. All the computers together communicate and ensure that they have the latest version of the software, whatever it is. And you go to the nearest server. So if I'm, for example, our friend in the data science will later cover this topic. So what happens is that if, say, for example, I'm in Hyderabad, my nearest data center is in Hyderabad or maybe in Chennai. I get a copy from Chennai. If I'm in New York, my nearest server will be in New York. He will not connect to the Chennai data center. He'll get the copy from the nearest thing. This is already in place. It's not a new technology. But here, these are apps which communicate with each other. These are apps which communicate with each other. It's not people. It's the apps, which means that your devices are communicating with each other. Right? So if I put a copy into the blockchain, if I put a app on the blockchain, the app gets distributed and will become easily available for all the users. So it's a system which will not fall down, something which is borrowed from cloud computing. The very reason why we went to cloud computing is that if something goes wrong, the data is still available on the cloud, we can retrieve it and then start using that. Right? So in this manner, the technologies are going to talk to each other. Now this is the latest thing that is happening in blockchain. We are in version 4 of blockchain. Right? So many evolutions are happening. If you feel that we haven't had a grip on blockchain, it is high time that we agree to this. So this is called something called meta hash. This is considered to be the next generation of blockchain, where, as I'm telling you, a complex mixture of technologies are being used. Right? To give you an example, your mobile phone will communicate with the fridge in your home. Right? So it will automatically decide. You don't have to tell. It will automatically decide what to do because artificial intelligence is put into place. Right? So artificial intelligence understands that you are on a way to your home by tracking your location information, etc., etc. Your device will automatically update the fridge and AC to switch on and be ready. Power consumption, green computing, everything is still there. So it will take care of all those aspects. So it will measure everything. It will also say that because there is a traffic jam, I need not have to switch on your AC before. So it will ensure that at the right time it happens. Systems will communicate with each other. They will tell that what is the probability of failure of the system also. So they will detect when they are going to die also. So no wonder in a few years time we will see that we will find out when our system is going to collapse also. The computers themselves will do the computation and tell us. So this is what is blockchain. Now to put you into more perspective, these are the 4 versions of blockchain. In the first version, we are using cryptocurrencies. Right? Now India is still thinking about whether to allow a cryptocurrency or not. But forward it to some 50, 100 years. It's a matter of time. I don't know how much is the time. We will start using our own cryptocurrencies. For sure. It's a matter of time basically because technology adoption on a mass scale has to be thought. So that's the reason why this policy dilemma is still there. But our finance minister already clarified we are not going to accept any cryptocurrency for now. Rupee will continue to be the only currency. Cryptocurrencies as a currency, currency means in the sense a transfer of money kind of is not allowed. So that leads to another question. Will we allow what is called investments in cryptocurrencies? Right? That is another way because there in that sense, cryptocurrency is seen not as a currency but as an asset. So when we are buying a property, when we are paying money, we are buying the property has a value, it's an asset, it has a value. Now in cryptocurrency, what is asset? There is no asset. There is no asset, it's a program, it's a file. How much can you value a file? I don't know. If I have a 100 rupee note, I say its worthiness is 100 rupees. If I show you a file, a text file or a notepad file or whatever it is, you cannot value it. So how can you value cryptocurrencies? This is a very important topic because we are auditors. Value, buy, sell, prices are important for us. Governmental institutions are also interested because they can make more tax. People are also more interested because if I put money into cryptocurrencies, it will definitely go up and then it will make money. But if an asset has to grow, if an asset has to go up, there should be some change. There's something called intrinsic value. Cryptocurrencies don't have an intrinsic value. So how can you say that the price of a cryptocurrency investment goes up or down? So there are lots of ambiguities. That's the biggest policy dilemma and probably the bill that was put in or maybe in the upcoming income tax budget also will probably have some amendments in that and we'll get a clarity. But for now, it is neither a currency nor an asset for us. Right? And there are some signals also from the government saying do all your declarations well on time about cryptocurrencies, etc. So it means to say it is more giving an alarming warning kind of situation. So if you are already investing in some form of cryptocurrency or not, better disclose that as soon as possible. So the first version of blockchain is there. So we are now thinking about blockchain 1.0, But later smart contracts have come in, dApps have come in, and Meta has come in. So well-developed countries like not US, Finland, Israel, etc., technologically advanced countries. Now they are looking at blockchain 4.0. We are now thinking about blockchain 1.0. And there are many people who are not at all thinking about blockchain. Let it come, we will think over. I did my MCom, I did my CA. So whatever is thought is still relevant for the next 10 years also, I can guarantee you this will be there. But things are changing so fast. We have to adapt, we have to change to these kind of things, right? So there are so many companies which have come into this picture who are developing software and infrastructure for the blockchain, right? Many of them are open source, which means the programming information, everything is openly available. You don't have to spend money on that. You need to have time to learn all these things. So if you start spending time on, say, start with YouTube or something like that, but end up with white papers or something, you'll definitely understand them. So coming to the context of banking and financial services, blockchain promises three things. The first one is it enhances protection, and this protection, when I say, it's on the infrastructure and on data attacks. The second one is very important one. If a bank has to adopt a blockchain technology, it means relearning. All my RDBMS, etc. is waste now. I have to use much new things. So if I'm investing in this blockchain, what is the biggest advantage from a management perspective? So blockchain will reduce cost, because content need not be put into one single computer. It's already distributed across. So the cost of ownership of information is very low. And there is a lot of transparency and traceability of information. Right? Now you may ask, sir, why is this government so worried about cryptocurrency? When you say it's an open ledger, information is available everywhere, right? Why is government having a problem, particularly with cryptocurrencies? The problem is we have something called double spending. Say for example, I have a 100 rupee note. Okay, I give you 100 rupee note. My currency note moved from one place to another place. So there is transfer of value. But in cryptocurrencies, you don't have a note. You don't have a paper, you don't have a physical thing. It's a file, it's just a transaction. A block is a file ultimately, right? So the block is confirming that I have sent you an asset to you. If I send the same file to two people at the same time, right? One of the transaction gets accepted by the block, but the other transaction will not be accepted, right? So I can escape, I can move away because I got the asset. I sent cryptocurrency to both of you. Right? I got the benefit, whatever I want, asset I got, and I go away. So the problem here is when you're using this public cryptocurrencies, traceability is a problem. There is a concept of traceability, but governmental institutions should have a control over the entire block. And this blockchain currencies, these cryptocurrencies are not owned by one, or jurisdiction is not just in India. It's global network. So in order for this kind of cryptocurrencies to be globally acceptable, all the countries should together agree to this, to something kind of agreement, that there should be some kind of law enforcement to happen, which governments are not ready to take, because no two countries will be friends all together, all the way, right? So for this kind of, that's the reason why governments are worried to allow cryptocurrency or not to allow, right? So some of them have blanket no. China, for example, day one say it's clear. Don't ask me this question again and again. No allowing of cryptocurrencies at all, right? But there are companies like Tesla, for example, Amazon, for example, they say we are going to put forward cryptocurrencies of our own if you don't allow to do this, because these are giant corporations, right? So from a bank and finance perspective, there are four big advantages for cryptocurrencies. The first one is smart ledger system, right? So we will start using smart ledger system where clearing houses will get removed. We know the concept of clearing house, right? Clearing house is the intermediary between two parties, so they'll get redundant. Then smart contracts, agreements, enforcement of agreements, etc. In a smart contract, the system, my computer and your computer, my phone and your phone, they talk to each other, right? My phone transfers money to you, your computer automatically enforces the contract. It generates a contract in my favor. So that is what is smart contract, right? Then we have shared document system, our KYC systems. I don't know how we allowed it to become so big, right? Is it not a common sense that the document which I use for opening a bank account with one banking institution will more or less be the same with another bank? And these banks are allowing you to transfer funds between them, but they're not allowing you to share documents, right? It is ridiculous, I would say. But now that this system has come in, we have centralized KYC, CKYC we call it. I come from mutual funds basically. I'm doing my PhD in mutual funds and using blockchain to implement that. My brother is actually working on implementation aspect while I was working on the management aspect. So KYC, we have central KYC at least now. So if you want to open a mutual fund investment, you go to one mutual fund company, submit the documents. So 1 or 2 days, central KYC, CKYC will take the data. And you go to any other mutual fund, with the PAN card number, you should be able to transact. You need not have to again and again submit the information. So the CKYC information is now also getting integrated with banking systems also, which means to say PAN card will be the only identity that you might need, and all institutions will welcome you automatically very easily. So you can use the blockchain for smart documents. Supply chain management is saving a lot of money with this. For example, you buy a bottle of Pepsi. You buy a bottle of Pepsi. Pepsi bottle will have so many ingredients. There is something wrong with this. Or you take the concept of Nestle noodles, right? Nestle noodles, we had that issue, no? Wherein there was lead concentration in the noodles packet, so they have to recall all. So they cannot trace it. They cannot find out who is the where did this lead content come in the first place. There is no traceability there at that point of time at least. But now we have this smart tracking systems which is used in which is used in supply chain management. So if you take a car, for example, or a bottle of Pepsi, all the ingredients of that particular liquid that was created can be traced to the origin, including from where the water is sourced. Right? So all the chemical compounds, how many companies are involved, etc., etc. You take a car, for example. Tata Motors, for example, uses blockchain. So what does Tata Motors do? This EV car, for example, if you take the components of an EV car, there will be so many hundreds of components and thousands of suppliers who will supply those components. So if some accident happens, or if some investigation has to be done for that particular vehicle, we can go back and trace out where is the origin of this product, right? So that kind of traceability was put into picture with the smart tracking, right? So in terms of financial applications, the real implementation started in 2016, which means 8 years after the technology has come in. So ICICI with the Emirates NBD, so they started implementing this. Later on, several companies have come in for different reasons, different applications, right? Now, after several years of efforts and work, etc., even governmental banks also have started in. The problem with this infrastructure, banking infrastructure, is that we have so many RBI restrictions, etc. So banks are also constrained in a way when they want to use mass scale blockchain implementation. So they are definitely working out on this, and we will see more and more companies coming in, right? Now the blockchain concept, the cryptocurrency concept in terms of cyber crime, right? As I was telling you, if you, for example, the most common currency used by fraudsters is cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin is most popular amongst us, as our friend was telling earlier. Now the reason why Bitcoin is most preferred is because the Bitcoin concept is the first implementation of blockchain, which means it's already sizable, right? Size of the content is very big. So as I was telling you, another loophole is governmental institutions cannot enter into that network, right? So because governmental institutions cannot enter into the network, even when this technology provides you this kind of traceability, we don't have the jurisdiction, etc. So lots of regulatory changes in consensus with other governments also are necessary. This is the case wherein a person out of Mangalore actually, he hacked into a system and was able to steal money from a cryptocurrency wallet, right? There is no tracing happening. He did that for the second time also, a few years later. He was successful in doing that. So why are we losing money from a cryptocurrency wallet? This is one big issue that is happening. It again goes back to the basics of mistakes that we do in normal device management, etc. So it's not because of blockchain that this has happened, but because of the lack of awareness, you call it, or lack of negligence for updating the software, etc. Right? So with this note, I end my presentation. If you have any questions, I will be able to answer you. There is no question which is right question or wrong question, right? Any silly question is also welcome, right?